Speed's good. Power set. Stay. There you go. Keep that nose down. The windsock's got just a little bit of right to left, not much. Alright, final gear check is good, pressure's good. Beautiful. Hold steady, this is all you. Left, right, there you go. Good. Keep her coming. I don't know what happened to our pappies out here. Keep the nose down. Keep her coming. Keep her coming. Too much rudder, that's way too much. There you go, just let the airplane do most of it. Hold her steady, just relax. Easy on your feet. Hold it. Hold it. You're good. Alright, I got the airplane. You have the aircraft.
Straight ahead. There's no left or right. Straight ahead to your heart. Dan Grider. Probable cause. It's Sunday night, February 18, 2024. Glad to have you with us tonight. Another Sunday night live broadcast. You know, we had 2,500 of us in here late night last Sunday night after the Super Bowl. What a game. How about that? So we delayed the Sunday night broadcast of Probable Cause last week because of the Super Bowl and because of the Remnant Fellowship Michael Shamblin interview that was going to come out on NBC 5, Nashville 5, Channel 5 in Nashville. They got delayed a little bit up there. So far, there's been 3 interviews with Michael Shamblin up there. I've got a lot to say about the Remnant Fellowship Church. My last video from last week caught a lot of flack from the Remnant people in Nashville. Quite a few complaints to YouTube, and I got those. I documented all those. If you want to watch the Remnant stuff, I've got a lot of Remnant stuff to say in the future going forward. Probably going to follow the same footprint. I'm going to put it up and leave it up long enough. YouTube gives me about 48 hours to take it down once people complain about it, but I've got all the stuff and I'm going to post it. If you want to see it, Remnant Fellowship Church, 66 Bravo Kilo, Gwen Shamblin, the crash of the jet. I'm going to put it on there. All you got to do is subscribe and set your alerts. Those videos will stay up and active as long as I possibly can. YouTube gives me 48 hours to take them down if I get complaints on them, which I probably will. Those people up there are just crazy on this stuff and don't want anybody talking about it. They can complain to YouTube. So that's what that is. 2,500 people in the live chat room. If you're in there with us again tonight, make sure you say hi. Jump in there. We'll try to answer as many of those as we can and say hi. Let us know where you're checking in from. It's always a lot of fun. Tonight's video is jam-packed. I got a lot of topics to cover here tonight, so we're just going to jump in here and get to it. First of all, I want you to know that Dylan is now a private pilot. He had 352 hours in his logbook when he jumped in here this week and finished his private pilot check ride. Here's a short little piece of an interview with Dylan, and his big brother happened to be with us for the day. All that went very good. Here's Dylan.
You did give me a piece of paper. There it is, private pilot. There it is. Check ride. Well, number of hours. How many hours? We sat down at the table today. How many hours did you have sitting down at the table for your private pilot check ride?
352.
352. That sounds like a lot. I mean, it is a lot. You did all those hours as a student pilot. Student pilot cross-country solo with nobody else in the airplane. And
A lot of them, yeah.
what was the big deal that made your cross-country different than most people?
I was using Pilot Edition Dead Reckoning with no GPS.
No GPS. You're drawing a line, E6B with a paper sectional. Sounds kind of old school, and it is, but what do you think that did for you education-wise on charts, airspace, and planning, and wind correction, true air speed, density, altitude charts, all that stuff?
Yeah, it just builds a great foundation. You know, I know how to do everything mechanically on my own. If I ever need to figure it out, whenever I move on to GPS stuff, I can revert back down and use that stuff in the future. So,
yeah, pretty cool. So this logbook is now totally full. We'll be starting on the second one here pretty soon, but congratulations, brother.
yeah, thank you.
I think you did a great job. It was a fun day. Got your big brother with you on this trip, and the Cherokee 6-4 November did great. So
fantastic.
yeah. Anyway, Dylan Grider, he's done.
Done with the private pilot. Appreciate it.
You know, I make these videos, I travel, I go around, I speak to places and do all that kind of stuff. I make these videos, it takes a tremendous amount of work. Here's my opportunity to give you a chance to support, I suggest $1, maybe $2, via these electronic that go to me. I oftentimes get 100 or 150 people that will give me $1 after a video, and that helps a lot. This takes it from being a cost-productive operation to having my costs covered. Here's your methods of doing that. It's very safe. It's electronic. Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. All you knuckleheads out there that donate $1 on occasion, I very much appreciate that. It keeps me going. It helps cover these expenses for travel, video production, and all that kind of stuff that I got to do. It's not a multi-million-dollar money-making thing, but it definitely helps me recover some expenses and make it a little bit more palatable to go do these kind of things, and I appreciate that. The opening sequence for tonight's video was a ride-along with a guy named Gil. I want you to go back and look at the DC-3 video that I did concerning a DC-3 crash that happened in Atlanta in 1940. This guy's father was the chief pilot for Eastern Airlines. Along about that time, not able to determine exactly when he was there, but here's the rest of the in-flight footage with Jim Gill's son, who came and flew the DC-3 in honor of his father. Here's a little bit of that footage. I'm going to include that full ride-along video at some point in the future. Here's a little snippet of the ride-along with the Eastern Airlines chief pilot from New York, who was hired at Eastern in 1930.
Speedway, airport, automatic weather observation. 1648 Zulu, weather, wind 340 at 7, wind variable between 270.
There you go. All right, I'm gonna take a video of you with your dad flying here. Tell me what this picture is. I got the airplane for 1 second.
Roger. So this is my dad, John F. Gill, in his uniform after he retired from Eastern after 30 years at Eastern Airlines.
And what year did he start at Eastern?
1930.
So he was most likely around when the Eastern Airlines got launched with Eddie on board that came to Atlanta and crashed in Atlanta. He was probably around or involved in that flight somehow.
Yes, probably.
So, all right, and then you went on to a naval career, and then your father flew 30 years at Eastern Airlines, always New York based, I guess?
Yes. Yep.
Wow. That's quite the career, and you've got a lot of his stuff and memorabilia. It's a different time. What do you think it would have been like for your dad to fly this airplane at night in the weather with passengers on board?
And yeah, pretty amazing. At 86 years old, how old is this airplane?
I'd have to do the math. It's built in 38, so it's getting on up there.
80-some years ago at night. I can't imagine it.
Yep. And what was your dad's name?
John F. Gill, John Francis Gill, Johnny Gill.
Johnny Gill, Eastern Airlines, New York. How about that? All right, thanks.
Next thing we're going to talk about is schedule real quick. Remember, Monday and Tuesday, which is tomorrow and Tuesday, will be in Nebraska at the NATA, Nebraska Aviation Trades Association. I'll be the speaker at noon for the luncheon, but we'll also be out there Monday evening for the little reception. If you happen to be around, I'd love to meet you. I'll have Drew out there with me. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll be out there for that. And then this Friday, I'll put this on the board here right now, the 23rd at Hampton, Georgia. We'll be at Hampton, Georgia with both the Cherokee and Dillon and the DC-3. If you'd like to fly the DC-3, I'm going to sell a lap around the pattern. If you want, this is very inexpensive. If you want left seat for one takeoff and one landing, I'll have the DC-3 out. There's no sign up, there's no reservation. Your only limitations are you have to have a valid pilot's license of some kind and a medical. I'll sell you a takeoff and a landing, and I'll put it in your logbook. You get left seat for one takeoff and one landing. It's first come, first serve. We'll have the DC-3 and the Cherokee. If you'd like to fly in the Cherokee with Dillon, that's free. We're going to roll the Cherokee out, and Dillon's a brand new private pilot. He's going to give some airplane rides on Friday, probably one takeoff and one landing, and get some experience flying with some other people in the traffic pattern, day VFR, and there's no cost for that, no money changing hands. We're not renting anything or selling anything. That's just a ride in Dillon's airplane with Dillon. If you'd like to do that, that's Friday. We'll be at the airport from 10 a.m. to dark, and then Friday evening we'll be going to dinner. If you'd like to go to dinner with us, I've got a crew car available, and I've got stuff available if you'd like to show up at Hampton, Georgia, KHMP. That's Friday the 23rd. And then March 6th, we'll be in Columbus, Ohio for the evening function up there. Let me know. Here's the graphic for that. March 6th, Columbus, Ohio. Then March 16 will be in Crestview, Florida. Here's the graphic for that. They're asking you to RSVP. It's a Saturday morning pancake breakfast for their EAA chapter. They've got like 4 chapters combined to get this thing going down there. So RSVP for that. We will be down there in Crestview on that Saturday morning to eat their pancakes and probably steal their bacon. Should be a great time. That's it for schedule. Let's move on. Now I got several videos on the back burner coming out in the very near future. One of them is D.B. Cooper Part 3. Here's an article that came out. This British tabloid newspaper thing came out yesterday. I'm mentioned in there. I've been mentioned in the British tabloids here, newspaper things several times. This D.B. Cooper thing is fascinating. You're going to see more on D.B. Cooper. I've got D.B. Cooper Part 3 in the works. If you want to go back and look at D.B. Cooper Part 1 and Part 2, and I'll show you this watch. This is the watch that I was wearing when I did the famous parachute jump on the 50th anniversary at the spot. If you look in that article, that's me holding up the parachute with this watch. It busted the other day, but this is an old watch. I'm going to put a new watch band on it, but this is the original from that jump, and you can see this watch in that picture. And the whole D.B. Cooper story, Part 3, Richard Floyd McCoy, is about to come out in the very near future, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the results on that. Very happy with that. I've also got Remnant Fellowship Church, several more videos. I'm going to include a little bit of segment at the very end of this video if you're interested in Gwen Shamblin, Michael Shamblin, 66 Bravo Kilo jet crash into Percy Priest Lake. I've got a little bit of that footage at the end. Some of you are not interested in that, and I appreciate that. I've also got a special straight ahead documentary style video that explains what straight ahead is and how important this is. This has to do with one particular GA fatal crash. It killed 2 people, and I went to the location and became friends with the family. At their approval and actually at their request, I went to that scene and filmed it and did everything. I've got all that stuff. It's in a special documentary style video that's fixed to come out called Straight Ahead. I'm using that Amy Grant theme song, Straight Ahead. That's me on the guitar playing this. Here's what it sounds like right here. It's a great tune. It's a great message, straight ahead, and stay alive via going straight ahead. It's the concept for everything that we're doing here. Put your helmet on, put your seatbelt on, go straight ahead. Don't be influenced by the bad stuff out there. Do the right thing. Go straight ahead. I've also got another video fixed to come out here, I hope in the next 3 or 4 days, with Brian Schiff. He's the son of Barry Schiff. You might remember the name Barry Schiff from the late 70s, early 80s, even into the 90s. Barry Schiff did a lot of professional writing in the aviation industry. He was an airline pilot, but very involved in general aviation. And here's a quick snippet. The whole concept has to do with this right descending teardrop turn in the traffic pattern for a left downwind entry. I've already done a couple videos, though you can find those still on my YouTube channel, concerning the right teardrop to the left downwind. Illegal? Unsafe? What is the deal? Here's a little bit of a snippet with this interview with Brian where he talks about this. We happen to have an opportunity to get together and talk through that. And I'll show the full interview with Brian at some point in the next very near future, because it's a very interesting interview and he fully agrees. Here's my interview with Brian Schiff.
But it caused him to really start studying the advice given to pilots about going straight ahead. But you're right, he kind of pioneered that study, and I've kind of picked up the reins from him on that recently.
Yeah, good. Well, to answer your initial question from a few days ago, are we doing better in general aviation? Yes, we are, and I'll put that graphic on the screen right now. You know, I track these accidents as they occur. NTSB takes about 3 years to come up with some kind of a conclusion, but we don't really need to wait for the conclusion. The numbers are the numbers, and really the only thing I track is general aviation fatal accidents per year, and I'm trying to see that decline. Is it related to the number of hours that we're flying? Well, of course it is. But we don't have those numbers for 3 or 4 years after the fact either. So the best I can do in real time is how many airplanes are we bending every month? How many funerals are we having every month? Sure seems like it would be better if we had less funerals, and that's what I'm kind of driving at. The whole concept of mid-airs, near mid-airs, and mid-airs is on the forefront. I know you do a lot of work with ForeFlight. I'm not really a ForeFlight guy, but step me through this new concept. And I'm not, first of all, I want to make sure everybody's clear. I am a proponent of ForeFlight. I think their product is absolutely fantastic. It's a necessity in the cockpit. Whoever designed that stuff is genius. I'm not a ForeFlight guy, but it's not because I oppose anything that they're doing. It's just because I'm too old school and haven't really adapted to all that stuff. But the ForeFlight came out with this thing, and they used a term that's typically reserved for the IFR world. What's the term that ForeFlight came up with recently?
Well, I think you're referring to the teardrop. For lack of a better word, they use that to describe the entry to a pattern. It's also an entry to an instrument flying holding pattern, and that's how you and I grew up hearing about the word teardrop. Other than, you know, maybe getting the bill after flying, I might have one right here. But generally speaking, we use the teardrop entry as a way of entering a holding pattern. But they referred to it as one of the entries that they show in the traffic pattern entry procedures. And I, like you, am a big proponent. Obviously, I do my ForeFlight workshops. I try to teach this very wonderful app so people are learning it while I'm big plug foreflightworkshops.com. To teach this app. But yeah, it should be used as a crutch, not as a crutch. It should be used as a tool, not a crutch, a flight planning aid. And so this term that you're asking about is one of the pattern entries that is recommended to a VFR traffic pattern.
You know, the whole doors falling off of airplanes thing, it's totally crazy. The Alaska airplane, it's pretty simple. This is not a bad Boeing design. The door was designed just fine. Whoever took the door off, put it back on, and failed to remember to put the bolts back in. You've walked out of the house and forgot your car keys and your glasses. You forgot your coffee cup sitting on your car. Human beings are forgetful. Somebody forgot to put the bolts back in. Doesn't have anything to do with Boeing being a bad company. I'm not even convinced that there's an actual work order required for the door removal. We don't have a work order or a logbook entry to open the forward 1L door on any airplane. We just open it and close it. No logbook required. This is a door. He opened the door and he closed it back. It's just that in this particular case, he needed the bolts. And NTSB went crazy ape over this door thing, trying to do destructive testing on the door. Not required. There's only 4 retaining bolts to keep the door from riding up and out. It finally happened. It vibrated. The fuselage twisted enough that this thing, with air load and pressurization, it rode up and out and the door was gone. That's all that happened. Took NTSB forever to figure it out and publish a report. And then I want to show you this video clip. The door thing. There's been several of these here, and here's one that just happened at my local airport. I'm really astounded that nothing got reported on this. FAA was actually there, but nothing got reported. Here's my video clip on 551 Zulu Lima. Speaking of doors falling off, here's another one that fell off, and I watched this one happen. 551 Zulu Lima is this very easy canard thing that was out here flying. You can see the door right here. This is what it's supposed to look like. Now let me show you the actual door that fell off of this thing right here. This is the door that's all taped up right here. They've got this thing totally duct taped closed now, and here's the dirt. This thing hit the dirt right here and skinned it up and still got some Georgia red clay there. But this thing, the door fell off in flight. The feds were here. FSDO was actually here, but it never made it into the FAA report, never made it into the NTSB report. You won't find anything on 551 Zulu Lima anywhere, and I want to know why. This happened in flight. The door actually fell off. Let's go look at another one that fell off in flight up in Buffalo a few days ago. As I alluded to, we're going to look at the Diamond DA-40 up in Buffalo, New York, who took off, and they also lost a door. It's just that the FAA went ahead and investigated this one. Here's the audio clip from this. This guy declares an emergency, and he says very clearly what happened. He lost his door after takeoff.
Buffalo Tower, Diamond Star 568 Charlie Alpha with an emergency. We lost our back door.
568 Charlie Alpha Tower, roger. Wind's calm. You cleared to land any runway. You want 32?
32.
Roger, I cleared to land 568 Charlie Alpha. We did notify the fire department out of caution. We're roll the track.
You know, the whole concept of incidents and accidents and things that get reported, some of it gets swept under the rug. 53 Alpha Alpha, I reported on this on February 4 on my YouTube channel. 53 Alpha Alpha happened early December in Atlanta. They wrecked this 172, but no FAA, no NTSB record. I reported on it on February 4, Sunday night. The morning of February 7, miraculously, both FAA and NTSB entered it into their reports and issued a preliminary on this one. It became an official accident after I reported, almost 2 months after the fact. In fact, it was more than 2 months after the airplane crashed, almost destroyed this airplane. The deal was it had for sure a DPE. I'm not convinced who was the other person on the airplane at the time. I have heard that it was a FSDO guy with a DPE, a FSDO guy giving a DPE a check ride. I don't know. They won't say. Nobody knows. That airplane, it was a complete cover-up. The flight school simply told told all its customers that that airplane was down for maintenance for a little while. They hid the airplane, did not allude to the fact that that airplane actually got crashed by a DPE. Well, let's press on. You've heard of DUI, driving under the influence. There's also FUI, flying under the influence. Well, that begs the question, what is influence? And I'm working on a concept here, a rating scale to rate the level of influence, positive or negative, compared to the power of the influencer. Now, I'm going to reference this Michigan case. I don't know if you follow this. This is a landmark case, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. This Michigan mother is being sent to prison. She went through trial. Her son was the school shooter. She was found guilty simply because she had casual knowledge of her son's condition and did nothing about it.
We find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
She has been on trial. Her husband is about to be on trial. The kid that did the school shooting, he's in prison for life. But let's listen to the video clip on this. I'm going to read it to you here. This is exactly what they said. They crossed a line. This is gross negligence. They should have taken some steps. They ignored a risk that would have been obvious to an ordinary person. They ignored a risk that would have been obvious to an ordinary person.
These deaths could have been prevented. In legal terms, they argued she was grossly negligent.
A negligent person is somebody who may not have thought about something that was dangerous, but should have thought of something that was dangerous, that they ignored a risk that would have been obvious to an ordinary person.
The prosecution argued Jennifer Crumbly didn't pull the trigger that day, but she is responsible for those deaths. And over the course of this 2-week trial, they convinced the jury.
So my idea is, yes, the person that crashes the airplane is probably guilty of a bad decision. You know, most of our airplane fatal crashes have nothing to do with a mechanical failure anymore. It's a bad decision. My question is, who influenced that person to go make that bad decision, and to what extent? How much influence was provided, and what was the power of the influencer? It's on a sliding scale, and this Michigan mom didn't rate very high on the negative side of this chart, but she did have knowledge, and she failed to do anything about it, is what they're claiming on her case. It had drastic results, 4 children dead up in that school system. But that's the cross of who the influencer was. And in her case, she had knowledge, and she was the mother. She had the opportunity to do something about it. She simply failed to do anything about it. It's a far cry from a person who actually pushed, encouraged, enabled somebody to go do something bad and ended up with fatal results. And that person would have been extremely knowledgeable with the knowledge that a common, ordinary person should have had. I'm going to do a lot more work on this concept, and I'm going to start assigning a value, a rough value concerning influence on general aviation fatal accidents. Maybe the pilot wasn't influenced at all. Maybe he simply had get-there-itis and all of his decisions were his own. However, was he stopped? Did anyone give him counseling? Did anybody ever pull him aside and say, this is not a good idea? That would be on one side of zero. On the other side, was he told, no, you can do it, go try it, this is totally cool, you can do it, when that's not the truth? Was he negatively, falsely influenced by somebody that he trusted, he or she? Was he influenced in a negative way with drastic fatal results? And that's the scale that I'm working on that. New concept coming out. It's still on the drawing board, but I want you to know that I am working on it, and it is directly a factor in a lot of fatal crashes. Who was the influencer, and what was the extent of the influence? You know, I got a couple catch-up accidents that I got to catch up on. The Hoppajet thing, I caught a lot of flack on the Priss thing, but I want you to know that I'm not making this up. There's been a lot of fatal accidents. There's been a lot of non-fatals concerning turbojets, jet-powered airplanes operating up above 40,000 feet that ended up in a flight idle descent only to add power and demand fuel. The Challenger that crashed in Florida, the Hoppajet, definitely had fuel, oil, heat, air exchangers designed primarily to prevent this problem. However, it is still possible. Remember, this fuel supply going to the engine that supplies fuel up out of the tank that goes to the exchangers, that has to be clear of ice particles as well before it gets there so that it doesn't restrict the flow. Whenever you jam the power forward and have a huge demand for power after you configure, it is possible. I've seen a couple of videos on it's possible that somebody reached around the throttle control here and bumped the paddle switches, knocking both fuel control levers off at the same time. I suppose that is possible. All I can say is that I'm not a Challenger guy. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a Challenger accident where that actually happened. And those switches aren't the kind of thing that you could simply tap lightly and have the fuel control switch go to the cutoff position. You'd have to mechanically do both of them very deliberately to get those things to go off. We'll see in the end. I think the Priss thing, if nothing else, it's good conversation. Priss is a very cheap insurance. I have never said the words on the radio negative Priss. I've never said it in any of the jets or turboprops that I fly. If Priss is available, I'm putting it in because of that. And we'll find out. Let's go on to the next one. This is a beach jet in Bentonville, Arkansas. I want you to look at the graph on this thing. This thing got, I'm not sure how this happened, single pilot in a beach jet 400A. I'm not even sure that that was legal. I've never heard of single pilot in a beach jet, but this guy was by himself with 4 passengers. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but look at the speed that he got this thing up to. He rejected at a very high speed and then closed the throttles, tried to stop, went all the way off the end. Here's a picture of the jet. High speed, rejected takeoff. What was the reason for trying to stop well past V1, well past VR? What was the reason for that? I got no idea, but he's just lucky that he got it shut down and stopped before he went across the highway and turned this thing into a fireball. Very fortunate. The 172 in Florida, here's a picture of it. This airplane crashed out of gas. More people flying around at night with no fuel on board. I don't understand, but that's all it was down there in Florida. Let's catch up with January and February. You know, for January, here's the graphic for January. We ended up with 11 fatal accidents in January, which is actually very good. 18 is the average. For February, we're sitting here at February 18 right now. How many have we had for the month of February? Here it is right here. 3 so far, and here they are. We already talked about the rebuild wreck guy up there. I've got video footage of me and Jason together. I've never been a Jason fan, but that's just me. I'm not a fan of throwing these airplanes together and doing all this stuff and trying to get them out the door. Appears that there may have been a fuel cap issue, water in the tank. The line guys up there on Rebuild Rescue said that he added fuel, never sumped any of the 4 tanks. In any case, an engine definitely quit. He definitely, whoever the pilot was, did not handle the engine failure on takeoff. Did not handle it. Could have flown straight ahead at 200 feet per minute, wings level. Don't make a turn, go straight ahead, climb out at 200 feet per minute and bring it back around after you've flown 10 miles away from the airport. Then you can think about raising the dead and bringing it back around. Didn't do it. Tried to make a turn, turned into the dead engine, and that was it. Right engine is the one that failed on Rebuild Rescue. Let's take a look at this third one, number 3 here. This just happened the other day in Alabama. This is a news reporter, 67 years old, and this guy ended up, after a photo shoot, flying low level over the river here. And here's a picture of him. Hit a power line. Here's a video of the guy flying by about a minute before the fatal crash. He's flying down the river very low, and he hit the power line, and that's about it.
As we got out of the truck, we turned around, and we saw the fuselage of the plane that hit the water, and in a matter of probably 10 seconds or so, it just sunk. And we know that it hit the wires from speaking with some other folks that, like our neighbors right next to our campsite.
Well, we're down to Remnant Fellowship Church. If you stayed this far, I've got a lot more of this stuff coming out on this channel, Remnant Fellowship Church. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to leave those videos up. If you want to subscribe to this channel, set your alerts. You'll be able to see them when they come up. For however long I am able to leave them up, I will. Here's a little bit of video footage. Remember, Joe wanted out. Here's an excerpt from the News 5 station in Atlanta. Michael Shamblin said it best. He's not talking about a divorce. He wants out.
I think deep down, I think once he got into that position, I think he wanted out.
In all my research from the Nashville thing, there was one court document that was never allowed to go public. It was sealed by the court. I got a copy of it. It was written by a child psychologist counselor named Katie Pribble. She wrote it. I've got a copy of it. I'm going to release that in the very near future. I've got a copy of it. Katie is ruthless on Joe Lara. She pretty much spells out what a sick, psycho, depressed shell of a man Joe Lara was, not even all the way at the very end. Joe still had further to go. Joe is trapped. Remember, they were all at rock bottom. Gwen's dynasty had reached a peak in the heyday, and then after the peak, she had been in a huge decline. She had to have Joe. She had to have Tarzan. She was at rock bottom. I'm going to show you a little bit of video footage from the place where the Way Down Clinic started. This was the major source of all the money and all the wealth for Gwen Shamblin, was selling all those books and kits and Way Down diet plans for all these church women across America. When all that started in decline, she wanted a reality TV show. She didn't get it. Nobody else thought it was interesting. Nobody else bid off on it. She decided to do her own YouTube channel, The Life of Gwen and Joe, showing how great everything was. That didn't work. Nobody looked at it. You can still see that YouTube channel. It's completely disgusting. It's hilarious. Their wedding was completely disgusting, and it's on YouTube. She wanted Joe Lara as a boy toy. He ended up in that, and he could not get out. At the very end, I'm going to show you the flight path of this airplane. This is not a spatial disorientation flight path. This is a flight path of an airplane that makes a takeoff, has a struggle in the cockpit, and then it goes straight down. This airplane, I've got the flight path shown here, and now I'm going to drop in where the clouds were that day. It was 1,300 overcast, visibility 10. You could easily become disoriented and come out of the base of the clouds and still be okay. This airplane went straight down. I'll show you the graph of the flight path. This is from NTSB. It is straight down into the water with no correction implied or expressed or implied in any way. This is intentional. There is no way that this is not an intentional maneuver. Joe Lara simply wanted out.
I think deep down, I think once he got into that position, I think he wanted out.
Rock bottom. The rock. The rise and fall of Gwen explains what happened in the end. She had to have a boy toy on her arm. She had to have Tarzan. She had to have a new method of climbing this incline again. Rock bottom, downtown Nashville. This is where it happened. The intersection of rock bottom with rock bottom with rock bottom. Gwen was rock bottom. Joe was rock bottom. They had to have their official first date. Let's go find out where it happened. It happened at rock bottom. This is it. I found the actual table that they actually sat at that night with all the leaders from Remnant Fellowship Church. They would have been in here. They would have been in this restaurant. Check this out. This is where they came. All the leaders of Remnant Fellowship Church to a brewery. Yes, let's get alcohol, adultery, everything that you can imagine. When this meeting happened, Gwen was still married to David, but they arranged a first date to occur at rock bottom. It's because Gwen was at rock bottom, Joe was at rock bottom. How ironic that they selected rock bottom. Want to see the meeting room where they actually had these people? A private select room out of the way, not too seen by the public. Nice and quiet where we can put 10 or 12 Of all the people that are there, it's all couples. But Joe and Gwen sit together in the center. It's the first one, and this is where it happened, at rock bottom. Most of the airplane is still out there underwater. It's in about 12 feet of water, but underneath the water is this murk. I know because I went down there. In talking with a couple people, the interesting thing is there's a tremendous amount of debris still down here, and a bulk of the fuselage is still down here. The water's not super deep, and I am a diver. I'm fixed to go in and poke around down there for a second, so that's what we're doing next. But we're out here in the lake, and that jet is down there. It doesn't really do me any good to find anything. Even if I find the fuselage down there, there's not really very much you can tell. I already figured out by talking to the guys, this was a hard impact. This thing hit crazy hard. So it was coming downhill like a box of hammers when it hit the water in this spot right here. So it's time to get wet. I haven't tested the water to see if it's warm or not, but
oh yeah,
I'm going in.
Dan?
Well, that's all we got for tonight. I appreciate you hanging in here with us in the live chat room. It's been a lot of fun. See you next Sunday night. Appreciate your support for my tiny little itty bitty fledgling YouTube channel. Dan Grider. Probable cause.